Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on playing through the lines. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be looking at a pattern of play which is going to be focusing on receiving the ball to play forward, as in receiving through the lines. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. Now, in terms of players for this week, we're going to have 12 outfield players plus a goalkeeper, which you can adapt for more and less players as well. Now, in terms of equipment, we're going to be focusing on using balls, bibs, cones, and if you have mannequins to use, that'd be great, or even poles. And then when we move into small-sided games later on, if you don't have small-sided goals to use, you can obviously set those near with poles if you have that as well. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, from the goal line to where the strikers are here, okay, we are going to have 20 yards of depth, and then we are going to have between the strikers here and the player who will be making the third man run to finish, it's going to be 10 yards, then a further 5 yards to the midfielders here, and then 10 yards to the start point. So we're going 20, okay, then 15 to there, so 35, then 45 in total. Again, you can adapt that for more space as well, and you can even bring it in a little bit if you really need to. Okay, obviously if you're working with younger players as well, or if you don't have as much space. Then the width, 10 yards between these players here, okay, and then you're looking between 5 and 10 yards between these players there as well. Now, you don't need to split the players up into bibs or anything. We've just done it here so you can see where the ball's going to be working. So, start point here, the player looks to receive, okay, on the half turn, to open out, okay, and then play to the striker. The striker looks to pull off to receive the ball. As that's happening, we get our third man runner making a run into space, so when they get set into them, they can either touch and finish or move on and finish first time. So quite a simple pattern. We're just focusing on our receiving skills to start with, okay? Body shape to receive the ball, and then playing that ball through the line, so punching the passes through. Then, once we have finished there, okay, player at the start point will move up to here, okay? The player who is here will move across to be the player who scores. Player who scores will move back to here to be the setter, and the setter will go to the back of the queue. Then, once we're set and ready to go, we'll work off the opposite side. Player looks to open out, okay, as that player opens out, we'll start to curve our run here. This player looks to pull back to receive, set it into the space, okay, and then we finish. Follow the pass, back to the start point, and then become the setter. So again, you want the players to focus on that emphasis of the movement, okay, so here making sure that we're pulling away from the defence, receive the ball on the back foot to take it into space. Then we're focusing on, can we look to pull off into space to make that the opportunity for the player who's going to be finishing to make that run, okay, off the defender, and then a nice set into space so the player can move onto the ball. The last thing we want is a poor set here and the player's got to adapt their movement. We want to play it into that central area so it gives them the chance to first time finish, and also take that touch, okay, to draw the keeper in to then score. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now focused on our small sided game, which is trying to play through the middle of the pitch, okay, so receiving between the lines, okay, to then move forward. So it's going to be working from the defensive and midfield third, okay, for this one. Now in terms of the setup, so we're going to go with 40 yards of depth, okay, to start with, and we're going to have 35 yards of width, okay. So the middle area can be between 10 and 15 yards wide, and again 10 to 12 yards of depth, okay. Now, it's going to be 6v6 with the keeper, so the ball's going to start here. Okay, so we're trying to work our way out to the defensive third by receiving the ball in here, okay? So we're looking for movement out of this area as well. So when the centre-backs get the ball, okay, obviously focusing on players making movements to be able to receive that ball in here. And when we get it out of here, can we look to get the ball wide and forward to play into the goals. So what we're trying to do is work that ball out of here to get the ball forward. Now for the Reds, obviously they're looking to aim to press the ball, okay, protect behind as well. These two players obviously trying to protect the goals. With the Blues, when the centre-back gets the ball, okay, full-back's looking to offer, okay, we get a midfielder dropping in. They don't have to stay in these boxes as well. You can get a midfielder dropping in, try and draw somebody out. Full-back gets it, okay. We have to go backwards. Then what we could do is if we can get a player moving across, entices that movement there, then it can come back into here, full-back's ready to make the run, and we can play forward. So, again, it's realising for the players who are in possession that always involved in the game, okay, little movements, even not to get the ball, can enhance the chances of one of the teammates getting it in space. So in here again, a player might drop in short, they can't get the ball, okay, they spin off, okay, and it leaves a space for one of their teammates to get it, who can then receive and play forward. So a big thing is being confident receiving in tight areas, okay, receiving back to goal as well, making sure we're focusing on our body shapes, so receiving on the half turn to be able to play forward. When we receive it, can we find a pass out of pressure into space, and then we can try and score. So the fullbacks have got a big role because they're going to be looking to receive the ball to play forward. They're going to be the ones who we try and play into, okay, to play out of pressure. So we receive it in central areas and we try and get it out, so then we can look to play forward. And also, with them occupied in wide areas, there's a chance that the wingers, okay, get locked onto them, which leaves a bit more space in the middle of the pitch, and we can get runners in that area, okay, to receive and play forward. After a set amount of time, you can swap the teams over, okay, so they can both have a go of obviously being the team who's looking to receive and play out, and the team who's looking to press high to win the ball. So again, anyone's allowed to move into this area, okay, but what we're focusing on is trying to make sure that we can try and get an overload in these areas, okay, and also focusing on different movements, okay, so we can get two midfielders on the ball. We don't just want, when the ball is on one side here, this player looking to show all the time, okay, when it goes to the other side, this player looking to show, okay, so it's quite easy to defend against, okay. If this player doesn't get the ball, can they spin off, okay, this player might just take a little steps to there, then we can receive it through the lines. And then what does that mean? Here's our trigger, fullback, get yourself into a position, when this player receives on a half turn, you can try and get it to then play forward. We will now move into our next animation, before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving into another small-sided game. This time it's going to be looking to focusing on breaking down the opposition higher up the pitch. So, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, you can go with 40 yards of depth, okay, and then you can start with 40 yards of width. Now, we're trying to have the half space, okay, in here, okay, we're trying to have central area and then wide areas. So you can judge them on how big you want them to be in terms of how many numbers that you've got. Okay, if you need to increase the width as well, that's fine. If you want to just get rid of the wide area and just have the half space, that's fine as well. Now, 6v6, the defending team is going to be a 4 and 2, and then the attacking team is going to be a 3 and 3. Focusing on 3 forwards, midfielder, okay, and then the full backs, okay. But you could even have 2 midfielders and then wide players instead, okay. Out of possession, these players can come as midfielders. So we're focusing on stretching, okay, the pitch as high and wide as we can. Okay, obviously with it being 6v6, we've got to bring it in a little bit. But you can make it wider if you want to as well. It can be a progression that the pitch goes wider. So the Blues look to receive the ball, okay, and we're focusing on different movements when players got different balls. So if the wide player has got the ball here, okay, we want the player in the half space to either try and make a running behind or to offer short so that it can be bounced into this area here, so we're receiving, okay, to play through the lines here, receiving in between the defensive midfield, okay, and then we can look to obviously play forward, okay, play into the striker to try and score. Like I say, the other way is that if the player's got it here, we can look to make that running behind, which can either receive the ball, or by making that movement in behind, we invite the player to drive into space, okay, entice a player to come in. Okay, then we can play into the striker. We could then obviously look to receive the ball in behind, or obviously look to get a shot off. Now, if the play switches sides, okay, we get players making runs. Okay, so let's say here, and the ball works its way back across the other side. Okay, we could then see that midfielder here, like the wide player, receives the ball in the half space. Okay, when that happens, can the fullback get on the overlap, okay? It might entice the fullback here to drop back, okay? Or if that fullback comes in here, we can then receive the ball to going forward. So we're focusing on receiving the ball in areas where we can attack, okay? So making sure we're not all bunged up in this central area, okay? Condensing the pitch, making sure we're stretching it, staying high and wide to make sure we're stretching the opposition, like I say, to receive the ball in between the lines. So a little bit like the pattern I played before. We can receive here, we can play into the striker, we can get third man runners, okay? When they get closed down, okay, we can make movements in behind, okay, into space to then score. Then for the Reds, if they win the ball back, they're looking to score in here as quickly as they can. So when we're spread out here, we're looking to recover as quickly as we can to obviously defend the central areas and stop them scoring. And again, the rotation of the movements, okay, if a player here looks to drop in wide, okay, we can get him, one of the wider players or the midfielders, okay, we'll be playing a little bit wider, to drop into the half space. Can we move the ball quickly, okay? If there's no options to play forward, recycle it, and again, you can get movements in between the lines, okay, you can get the striker spinning off, midfielder dropping in, comfortable receiving in tight spaces, again, focusing on our body shape, on our awareness, to go forward and score. So the higher intensity that we play, the more movement that we've got, and recycle the ball, the more opportunities will come, okay, to be able to look to play through and receive in between the lines. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view over 900 session plans like this. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.